Dopamine, validation, false representations of ourselves and our relationships. Social media is a meta matrix that's keeping us trapped and unhappy with our lives. So I quit it for 30 days to take my life back, and here's how quitting rewired my brain and helped me unplug from this virtual reality. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Thank you for being here. I talk about anything and everything holistically to help you uncover your potentials. The footage you saw in the beginning was actually filmed in Tokyo when I was actually on the social media detox, and one of the ways that quitting social media helped rewire my brain was removing the mainstream pop narrative ingrained in me and helping me set my own trends. It's so common these days for people to just see a TikTok or an Instagram post and be inspired to go to a certain restaurant, a certain travel destination, and do the things that people have documented to be so great. And what actually happens is we end up drinking the Kool-Aid of other people's fantasies and mistaking them for our own, and reenact another form of getting the rewards of social validation when we also go to the same places and post the same things. So when I traveled to Tokyo without social media, I was free of other people's trends and their judgment of what good travel looked like, and I only really went and did things I actually wanted to do. I wasn't influenced by people's must-do and coolest places to go types of content because I really had nowhere to post my travel footage, well, maybe besides here. I didn't have to live it up and meet the expectations of what people on social media say about certain experiences, have my hot take on it, and feel like I had a foot into that mainstream pop narrative. I set my own trends for my own life, separate from the need of validation on social media, and it was fabulous. Let me insert some non-aesthetic photos here that I took on the trip because no aesthetic pressure. Besides just things to do and places to be at though, deleting social media actually helped me focus on living my life outside of social norms. For me, most of what social media has become these days is just every post and video representing an ideology that others are trying to delusion themselves into and impose them on you. And the most common forms are the jet-setting luxury lifestyles of celebrities and influencers, our friends and family posting their best of moments in life while not mentioning the lows, and the 10,000 niche communities that at the end of the day just bucket a certain lifestyle as the only lifestyle. When I stopped receiving all these what I call missionary brainwashing posts on social media, I was able to spend more time alone and actually think to myself, what do I actually want to do with my life? I'm not thinking in terms of like, oh, this is how it'll manifest and look like on paper and on social media, but actually envisioning things for myself and thinking whether they will actually support my growth. I think when the social media marketplaces are becoming so full of clout these days, everyone is just trying to one-up another, and it creates these invisible benchmarks and like to-do lists that also cloud our critical thinking skills for our lives. We lose the ability to discern whether we're actually living for ourselves or for others most of the time, and for most of us, we can't even say what our truest needs are that is separate from the surface level need of being seen and being validated by others online through likes, followers, etc. So even in just a short 30 days, I was not only able to catch myself questioning my old motivations of wanting to become X and Y or do X and Y, but it also redirected my attention to my own path irrespective of what others are bragging about online, and really helped me remove whatever basic standards of conventional success from my own brain and actually engage in deep thinking for what actually makes sense for me. And unplugging from social media not only allowed me to stop living for social validation, but also unplugged me from being that mindless scroller. Early on in the first week or two after deleting my apps, I would catch myself picking up my phone to want to go on Instagram or TikTok to aimlessly look at people's stories and videos, but realizing that the app is actually gone and there's nothing for me to do on the phone. And so it became an exercise for a good week or two of picking my phone up, putting it back down, picking it back up, putting it back down, before I finally learned to stop. And it was during those moments that I realized I resorted to mindless scrolling for those dopamine hits when I wanted an out, or basically an escape from my problems. Like, yes, my channel is called Mindfulness with Matt, but do I still have my mindless moments? Absolutely. So deleting social media for 30 days helped me unplug from that mindlessness that's so ingrained in the endless 5-second videos and actually put all my thoughts, my emotions, and my problems to the front of the line. Because of how short our attention spans have become, I noticed how using social media was really just getting in the way of my train of thoughts and actually impaired my cognitive abilities to think through things thoroughly. And so all my reflections and contemplations easily become so half-assed. But when social media wasn't there as a distraction, I had no out and actually had to really fully embody that mindful living and being present for not just my sufferings, but also my joys and my peace. And with more mindfulness, I found that I actually got better at recalling the things that I made mental notes of, rather than forgetting about it or relying on the 10,000 productivity apps that really is no better than just the notes app on our phones. And there's even research showing that the higher the social media usage, the more likely the negative emotions would actually result in memory failures. I'll include the full paper below, but yes, short attention span that we're adapting from social media usage does in fact impair our cognitive capabilities, and I was able to notice it in just the short 30 days. And when I was actually able to be present and mindful for myself, it also made me realize that we put so much belief in our online identity being real that we don't realize social media is just the matrix within the matrix, or what I call the meta matrix. Like, we may think, oh, it's just a cute avatar, or oh, it's just our online presence and brand. But most of the time, we don't actually differentiate between that virtual self with our own self and end up believing in that false online self. It's the same idea when we're watching a TV show or a movie and are completely engrossed in the plot and forget that we exist, and end up living that reality of the hero or the main character if the movie is well made. I inherently don't see any difference between that and our social media presence, where everything that exists on those platforms is all just representations of us stored in the clouds and are only fragments of who we truly are. So when I delete my social media, my data, mind you, is still all up there, but it helped me unplug from that virtual self and the meta matrix and help me recenter and actually pay attention to my real life. I think we all understand this because we know that social media is all about self-image, emphasis on the word image, not the actual self. But when we sign onto Instagram or TikTok and post that selfie and video, we actually subconsciously believe that to be the real us, kind of like going onto the stage and performing an act. So not having social media helped me cut that cord of having that post-performance blue, which in my mind is when we put our phones down and feel a little sad when we have to return to our real life after the stage lights go off. And by unplugging that source, I noticed I was able to experience the full spectrum of what it means to be alive in the here and now and be authentic to my experience rather than needing to resort to the matrix within the matrix to live another meta version of myself. So when I was able to really ground myself in this authentic moment, my brain also stopped seeking to be in another reality. And I think having that meta version of our lives also really creates these very detached social dynamics with our friends and online friends. When I quit using social media, it also showed how watered down our relationships with people have actually become. When we use online interactions and take them to be real, it subconsciously de-emphasizes the value of what started those friendships and relationships in the first place. And we mistaken a few likes and viewing other people's stories and videos as genuine connections. And that's really at the crux of this social media epidemic, where we forget that the IRL factor is the most important and that the authenticity behind how we connect with other people cannot be represented by the tagged photos, the comments, and the post interactions. I do think there is a time when your surrounding environment is not the best place for you and an online community does become really important, but being off of social media just showed me that we're really taking it way too far. When I had pretty much nothing to do on my phone, I found myself actually committed to being present in the real life, in social situations, and not defaulting to picking up my phone to check social media as a coping mechanism. When we become so used to living for that meta matrix, we even use social gathering as a way of affirming those virtual identities by needing to capture every single social moment together. But when all that external pressure was off, I channeled all of my presence into being there for my friends and my family, and the interactions actually became so much more rich and more meaningful. I wasn't trying to be in a situation just so I could make content of it, but actually found myself engaged in deep conversations that allowed me to see my loved ones for really who they were. Not for their virtual identities, not for my preconceived notions of them, but what they actually stood for and how they actually showed up. So yes, I made it sound like deleting social media changed my whole life and I did a full 180 and I no longer have any problems. There is some truth to that, but it would also be an overstatement. When I got back on social media after 30 days, it also made me realize how I actually missed seeing people doing great things that really inspired me. I spent a good chunk of last year clearing away sources and people I didn't want to see on my feed, and actively only made an effort to follow creators and friends who champion creativity, kindness, and compassion. So when I cut my meta cord from those sources, it also got me missing those wholesome pockets on social media and was actually quite relieved when I went back online. And I think this just really showed me that what people don't talk about in these types of quitting social media type videos is that at the end of the day, our relationship with social media still heavily relies on our intention. When we are mindless and don't think beyond what the platforms have put in front of us, then yes, we become victims of the dopamine hits and the addictive algorithms. But when we do decide for ourselves that we actually want to use those platforms for our own growth and nourishment, then it's not that social media platforms are evil, but that we have reversed the dynamic with how we use them. We can become the ones deciding what we want to see, and we can intentionally filter out the bad players off of our feeds. And yes, it does require a lot of mindfulness and active curation, but this really is the only path forward if we really want to be engaged in this modern world and not get sucked into algorithms algorithmic culture. We really have the power to seize our control over the algorithm if we have this awareness to say no to content suggestions that we know isn't good for us, and taking a very deliberate perspective when going online, like making the effort to say no to thirst traps, to creators who flaunt their hauls, their lifestyles, and their successes, mute your friends whom you don't care about, and actively seek out what you actually want to see online. I guess think of yourself as Mark Zuckerberg, who has a say in the algorithm. It really doesn't have to be a social media is only bad narrative when we can use that awareness of its potential evils and use our own mindful judgment to discern what actually works for us. So yeah, use it, don't let it use you. Alright friend, I hope you have learned at least a thing or two from this video. I would appreciate a thumbs up, subscribe, and maybe a comment on how you shift your relationship with social media. I will respond mindfully, I promise. Alright, take care.